Agile and sprints. What is Agile? Agility is the capability to produce and respond to change. It's a way of dealing with an unstable and uncertain circumstance and finally prospering in it. The name Agile was chosen as the appellation for this entire concept by the authors of the Agile Manifesto because it highlighted the adaptability and reactivity to change that was so important to their technique. What is Agile software development? Scrum, extreme programming, and feature-driven development are examples of Agile software development frameworks, FDD. The 12 ideas of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development are an organizing phrase for a collection of ideas and practices based on the Manifesto for Agile Software Development's principles and values. It's generally a good idea to live by these values and principles while approaching software development in a given way, and to utilize them to help you figure out what to do in your individual scenario. Agile varies from traditional software development approaches in that it places a greater emphasis on the people doing the work and how they work together. Cooperation between self-organizing, cross-functional groups using the proper approaches for their environment leads to outcomes. What is sprint? A sprint is a collection of tasks, milestones, or deliverables that a development team works on for a specified period of time. Sprints, also called iterations, break down the project plan into manageable pieces of time that can be broken down into smaller goals. Performing on a 6-month project can grow tedious, and Agile team members may feel as if they aren't progressing, even while they are. Instead of waiting for the project to conclude, you may focus on specific targets and celebrate triumphs as they happen by breaking your project plan into sprints. A sprint is a defined period of time in the Scrum framework for Agile product development during which a predefined set of activities takes place and a product increment is created at the end. Unless the Scrum team inspects their ways of working during a retrospective and finds that a different sprint length will be beneficial to their manner of working, a sprint is normally 1 to 4 weeks long and is fixed for product development. A sprint includes sprint planning, daily scrums, development work, sprint review, and a sprint retrospective. A sprint is a type of event that is used to achieve a specific task, such as a sprint goal. A sprint is a type of race that is used to achieve a specific task, such as a sprint goal. The sprint's actions are planned to achieve this, and any changes that would jeopardize the sprint's goal are avoided. Sprint Planning Meet. The Sprint Planning Meet in Scrum is attended by the product owner, Scrum Master, and the entire Scrum team. The team may invite external stakeholders, albeit this is uncommon in most firms. During the Sprint Planning Meet, the product owner explains the top priority features to the team. The team asks enough questions to translate the high-level user experience from the product backlog into more detailed sprint backlog items. The product owner is not required to describe each item in the product backlog. The product owner should arrive prepared to discuss the product backlog items for 2 sprints during the sprint planning meeting. A sprint target is a 1 or 2 sentence statement of the team's goals for the sprint. It is written in collaboration between the team and the product owner. The following are some examples of sprint goals for an e-commerce application. Basic shopping cart functionality should be implemented, such as adding, removing, and modifying quantities. Create a checkout process that includes things like paying for a product, choosing delivery options, and ordering gift wrappings, among other things. The sprint target can be used to communicate quick updates to persons who aren't participating in the sprint. Stakeholders that want to know what the team is working on, but don't need to know every detail about each product backlog item, are constantly present. User narrative. Rather than measuring the sprint's success against each individual item selected from the product backlog during the sprint review meeting, the sprint's success will be measured against the sprint target. The sprint backlog is another outcome of sprint planning. A sprint backlog is a collection of product backlog items that the team has promised to provide, as well as the work needed to achieve them. Every task in the sprint queue is frequently estimated. How are sprints structured? Every sprint begins with a planning meeting, known as the sprint planning meeting. The software development team and the product owner plan the next sprint in detail during this meeting. They choose which product backlog items will be processed throughout the sprint. These items are moved from the sprint backlog to the actual sprint backlog. The product owner is in charge of selecting the backlog items for each sprint. The development team has complete freedom in determining how to achieve these requirements. During a sprint, the most critical activity is daily Scrum. The daily Scrum meeting is usually only 15 minutes long. To avoid confusion, it always takes place at the same time and in the same area. It's not the product owner this time, but the Scrum Master. Although the product owner is vital in all other activities, the daily Scrum is about something other than product development. It has to do with how the development team collaborates. As a result, the daily meeting focuses on discussing what has been accomplished thus far and what will be accomplished next. The goal is for team members to share any potential barriers or issues with one another in order to speed up the working process. The team works on all of the tasks that have been added to the sprint backlog during a sprint. When the sprint reaches its conclusion, the team gathers for a sprint review meeting. The team presents the product increment to the product owner as well as other key stakeholders at this meeting. For example, the client. At this time, the product owner's role is to ensure that all of the requirements from the sprint backlog have been met. Those who aren't will be returned to the product backlog and will be picked up by the team during one of the subsequent sprints. The team reassembles after the sprint review meeting for the sprint retrospective meeting. It's the sprint's final meeting, and the goal is to strengthen the team's collaboration. As a result, rather than focusing on the product, it focuses on the team and its requirements.